special early week East Coast bias as John Jastremski, Joe House, and Raheem Palmer join us here on FanDuel TV, of course, for your friends on the Ringer Gambling Show. But guys, right out of the gate, and normally when we have Anthony DeBundo on with us throughout the NFL season, we bring him in later in the show. DeBundo, on the heels of the NCAA tournament bracket coming out, buddy, you're in the leadoff spot. So I took you from down in the order. Now I'm putting you at the top of the order. You ready to deliver for the East Coast Bias, boys? Let's go here.
There's a lot of pressure. You know, it's the college basketball community. We kind of have like 2 weeks a year where everybody else tunes in and they put the big spotlight on you. They bat you lead off. And I'm feeling it. But you know what? I'm feeling good. I've had about 18 hours to analyze the bracket now. And I'm excited to kind of look through it and dive into it with you guys and see, which sleepers we're going to avoid and which favorites we're going to back this season, because I do think it's going to be a chalky tournament.
Well, guys, this is why I love having DeBundo on, because we get to parachute in. The three of us get to make our great March Madness takes. We'll pick teams on guys we haven't seen at any point this year from 13 and 14 seeds and have a little bit of fun. But Joe House, Raheem Palmer, I was texting with you guys individually throughout championship week, and you guys kind of got into it, maybe made a couple of bets. I know Raheem has a future that's not looking too good at the moment due to an injury, which we'll get to. But House, I'll phrase it this way. From watching some of the games over championship week, is there a team that you maybe fell in love with, a team that you know now, hey, they're going to be in my circle of trust because they kind of captured my imagination over the last few days?
So the answer is an emphatic yes. I fell in love with a team that I think quite a bit of America fell in love with, and this is straight out of the SEC. I am so on this Florida team, and I wonder, having missed out on cashing the wonderful Connecticut train from the two previous seasons. Now, I did get aboard that train eventually. When a team wins every single tournament game by double digits, you must get on that train. You must capitalize. But as I sit and look at the framework for how this tournament is going to go, I wonder if Florida is capable of that kind of run. To me, from what I saw and from their body of work over the course of the season, it feels like it could be a yes, fellas. What do you think, AD?
I felt like Florida was the second best team in the country entering conference championship week. They went through the SEC, but I think I'm probably shying away from these SEC teams this year. And I think, anytime you hear everybody tell you how great a conference is, there should be some type of alarm bell that goes off in the back of your head as like, maybe it's a sell signal. Maybe the SEC isn't as dominant. They get 14 teams in the field. Maybe they're not as dominant as some of the KenPom metrics would suggest, as some of the predictive stuff and the AP top 25, and obviously the seed lines. The committee was talking yesterday about how hard it was to seed everybody because of all these SEC landmines they had to avoid. So I wonder, and I think this is part of it, the SEC is a very run and gun conference. There's a lot of fast-paced teams in the league. When the tournament becomes more half court, which always happens, does the SEC's inconsistent shooting impact that? And Florida has shooting, so that wouldn't necessarily be them. But is Florida's half-court offense good enough? Because we've seen them be very good in transition. Number 2 in the country in transition, behind only Alabama. What about in the half-court? And Stephen Ruiz wrote about this for The Ringer. 55th in the country in offense in the half-court. I think it's a little bit questionable, whereas like when you watch this UConn team the last couple of years, they were so good with their half-court sets that they could just destroy you anyway.
And Raheem, I always have a buyer beware of teams. Everything Joe House said about Florida's dominance in the SEC tournament, and DeBundo made the point, hey, they were one of the best teams in the country all year. This is not some instance where Florida came out of nowhere and worked their way from like being a 7 seed to a 4. They were on their way to being a 1 seed probably regardless of the fact. But now, Raheem, it seems like everybody and their mother has fallen in love with the Florida Gators to a point where I am looking at that region and I'm saying, Dream, I'm going contrarian there. And not just because I have a St. John's ticket at 5-1 and I have the love affair with Pitino and the way they defend and the storyline that they have been. But when somebody becomes that trendy over a period of time, Raheem, that scares me, buddy. I'm sorry, it does.
But isn't St. John's trendy? I mean, look, you got Pitino there. They got the best record they've had since, first Big East
since
title
the 80s,
since 1992.
Since when we caught a second Chris Mullen,
Yeah, so it's like, isn't St. John's trendy? And when you look at St. John's, look, they are very dominant defensively. I mean, they have the number one 3-point defense, but they're not a great shooting team. So, Anthony, how is their half-court offense looking? Because I'm curious about, how you feel about them.
Yeah, St. John's is a very high floor. I question the ceiling team because of the shooting. You mentioned it. They kind of rely on shot volume. So the shot volume is a term you'll hear thrown around by the nerds throughout the whole tournament. And it basically looks at, in any one game sample, shooting variance is going to play a huge role. But in any one game sample, turnover margin, rebounding margin, those are much more stable, predictive things that you can consistently do as a basketball team. And if you are one of the best teams in the country, you generally have to do something with turnovers and rebounds to get extra possessions, extra shots, to make yourself a little bit more immune to, oh shoot, we're 2 for 20 from 3 tonight, we're in trouble. And St. John's does that. They do that very well. But we've now seen a lot of St. John's this year. I don't know if they, fall behind in a game against a team that is, very effective. Can they shoot their way back into a game? The answer is probably no.
No, the answer to that question is no.
They could get turnovers and rebounds, right? That would be the idea. But
so that would be the game I'd reference. And I've watched a lot of them this year. So obviously that team, Raheem, for me, is more of mine than some of the other teams I've seen throughout the season. Mm-hmm. They were down in a game against Xavier by like 16 or 17 points. They were able to fight back in that game, not because they hit the three. They can't shoot the three. If they hit 7 or 8 threes, they're going to be happy at the end of the game. Patino started pressing. Their defense locked down. They attacked the rim. They sped up the game. That's how they got back into it. But I get it, DeBundo. If they fall behind against the team that's shooting the lights out from 3 and can kind of match them from an athletic standpoint, it's going to be problematic for them. So I get it. I get it. Raheem.
Wouldn't that be Florida?
Potentially. Yes. Hey, Florida's a more talented team, guys. There's no argument there. They're a clearly more talented team. But I'm just saying, when I see every expert on ESPN now picking them to go win the national title, and a few days ago it was Duke Auburn. So I'm saying, Raheem, it's become a little too trendy for my liking. They will not be my winner to win it all. I could just say that. I will not be picking Florida to win it all because everybody else is.
History would be against St. John's making the Final Four. I don't know if JJ knows the stat.
Give me the stat.
Since this is from Ken Palm. He tweeted this a couple years ago, and then we kind of did the math to figure out the number. Since the tournament went to 64 teams, there have been 39 schools that have gotten a 1 or a 2 seed despite not being ranked preseason in the AP Top 25. You want to guess how many of those 39 have ever made the Final Four?
3.
Less.
1.
Wow.
0.
And if I'm not mistaken, DeBundo, that Syracuse team that I loved so much my senior year, 09-10, they were a 1 seed.
Yep.
They were unranked, I believe, at the beginning of the year. Is that accurate?
They're on the list. They are on the list. Lost in the Sweet 16.
They also lost, to be fair, that year. Not to give you guys the boring Syracuse history lesson. Onawaku went down in the Big East tournament. Otherwise, that team would have beat Butler and would have won the national championship. But hey, that's just me.
Yeah, and it would have applied to Iowa State last year, who got a 2 seed, lost in the Sweet 16 to Illinois. There have been a bunch of teams. Marquette a couple years ago, famously Purdue, who was a 1 seed 2 years ago. We all know what happened to them in the first round against Fairleigh Dickinson. So it has not been friendly to teams that, and the logic behind it is preseason priors do matter. Even though we've watched 30 games of these teams, you still shouldn't forget what we ultimately thought of these teams before the season. And I know it's funny to mock when North Carolina is the preseason number 1 because they went to the national championship.
Kansas this year.
And then they missed the tournament. Or Kansas, right? There are certainly flaws to that. And I think, you could say there's a bias in favor of the big name programs at the top. But when it's the other way around, when these teams come out of complete nowhere and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, actually Iowa State's the 3rd best team in the country. It's like, shouldn't you bat an eye at that and say, wait a second, are we sure? And I think with all due respect to Johns and Patino, they kind of fit that bill. Even the most optimistic Johns fan would not have pegged them as a top 5, 6, 7 team in the country preseason.
No chance. No chance. Go ahead, Raheem.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, Anthony, because there is a team that came out of nowhere. They came out of the Mountain West, the Colorado State Rams.
I knew Raheem was going to go to this team. That was the team that I had teed up for Raheem, so I'm glad you just jumped in there. I was going to ask you who I knew you were going here, Raheem.
Yeah, I mean, they've come out of nowhere. I mean, they've lost 3 games since December 8th. They're an all-time top 60 KenPom team on the road. And they're taking on Memphis in the first round. So how do you feel about this team? And do you see them making a run? Because they've been absolutely dominant lately. And, you said the preseason priors count. How does that apply to this team?
Yeah, I have a bit of a bias with this team. I have a t-shirt for Colorado State. I've been a Nico Medved fan. He's probably one of my favorite coaches in the entire country. And I know it sounds weird. It's like, wait, you just root for this random Mountain West team, but they run awesome offense. They've had a lot of players over the years I've really liked. David Roddy, Isaiah Stevens. They've been to the tournament 3 of the last 5 years. So there is some pedigree. But you're absolutely right in the sense that we have seen Colorado State get into the tournament with like one really star player. This year it's Nick Clifford. In the past it was David Roddy. It was Isaiah Stevens. And these guys are legitimate stars. But the rest of the team, it's kind of they manage a great offense because it's a great scheme. It's well designed. They move the ball well. But when they face against these high major, superior athletic teams, they tend to really struggle at the rim, especially. And the market really loves them. I mean, they're a 12 seed.
They're favored. The bundle, they're
3,
favored.
2.5, 3. Yeah. Now, Memphis has some injury concerns, but it feels like every year there's one Mountain West team that everybody gets a lot of love for, and I've fallen for it myself. Last year was New Mexico. They won the Mountain West tournament. They got in. They were a 10 seed. They laid 3 against Clemson. I laid it, and they got smoked in the first round. So
don't remind me. DeBundo, House, go back to last year. New Mexico was one of my favorite round 1 plays. The game was over in the first 5 minutes. House, there are certain conferences that I look at, and again, I'm not going to sit there and tell you that I'm dialed into Mountain West basketball in November, December, January, and February. I get into it around conference tournament week, give or take. They have burned me so many times. House, I'm not taking any of these Mountain West teams. I'm fading all of them.
I went ahead. This Memphis, Colorado State, as soon as it showed up as kind of a underdog, upset darling situation, and it fits that 12-5, I immediately reached out to the Ringer's own Chris Vernon. I'm like, Verno, come on, give me the inside skinny on this Memphis team. He's like, these boys are dogs. I said, well, what about the guard who's footed? He said, these boys are dogs. So I immediately just went right into the FanDuel Sportsbook, found that money line plus 130 on Memphis, and I'm just going to ride with these boys are dogs because Verno told me to. So I think that's the handicap for that one.
See, I like this for him. Raheem, do you think that the public, when we sit there on Friday and this game is being played, is getting nothing but Colorado State action?
Nah.
Oh, you think you'll have good split action on this game?
Yeah, I think they got a good number out there. I really do. And I'm mad that this is the matchup because I was hoping to be able to just ride this Colorado State run, but I don't think I can ride it at this point. I probably going to stay off of this one.
So in the last month, you guys mentioned the winning streak. On the winning streak, Colorado State is 8th in the country in efficiency, 4th in effective field goal percentage, 2nd in 3-point field goal percentage on offense, 14th defensively, which is probably a little fluky. But we also saw Memphis do this before. Memphis played Boise 2 years ago in the first round, and Boise came in off of the back of a good conference tournament run in the Mountain West, and they got pantsed by Memphis. So Memphis is a weird team. The analytics darlings, if you look at KenPom, you're like, how is this a 5 seed? There is a little bit of weirdness to their numbers because Memphis absolutely does not get up for their weak games. Like if you wanted to juice your KenPom numbers, and teams do it now, your efficiency net, all that stuff, you can beat the brakes off of these bad teams by 30 plus. Memphis notoriously doesn't do that. They kind of sleepwalk, and that impacts their overall efficiency numbers, even if it doesn't necessarily matter when they get up for these big games like, the first round of NCAA tournament. So yeah, as much as it pains me, I don't know if I could do it, but I would probably be on Memphis there against my Rams.
Oh, wow. The bundle. I was surprised you went there. I'm with House. I will absolutely be taking the Tigers. I'm in on it. I'm grabbing those 2.5. House, let's go, baby. Inverno, we trust. We got a lot more coming your way. The bundle's going to be with us for another segment here as the early March Madness musings are coming our way. I'm going to ask the boys the number 1 seed that's going to go down first in the NCAA tournament. There are 4. I have 1, but there's a little asterisk I'm going to put next to it. I'll explain when we come back. All right, welcome back. So we know who our 4-1 seeds are. Auburn, Florida, Duke. I think Flagg is going to play. I don't know if he's going to play in that first game, but he's going to play. I'd be stunned if he doesn't. At the earliest, I think it'd be in that 8-9. If not, you'll see him for the Sweet 16. And hey, Duke, even without him, looked pretty darn good on Saturday against a good Louisville team. So you got Florida, you got Duke, you got Auburn, you got Houston. House, we know what the odds are. If you had to put a wager down on what number 1 seed gets bounced first, who would you pick?
It's going to be Duke. And it's going to be Duke.
Really?
Well, Duke is tremendous. And I have enormous respect for Cooper Flagg. I can't wait for him to arrive here in Washington, D.C., and I look forward to meeting him in person.
Look at you trying to rig the lottery already.
And
I love it. I love it.
See about that. Philly's pulling up the lottery.
Ankle injuries suck. They just suck. You just can't rush. There's nothing you can do. There's no medical, fast forwarding, electrostimulation and ice and elevation. I play basketball for, 30 years, tore ligaments in both ankles because that's what happens when you ball. And it just takes a long time. And if you don't have, you can get mobility back, but what you don't get is the bounce back. It takes a long time for the bounce to come back.
Even at 18 years old, House?
Yes. I tore my right ligament on my right ankle while I was in college. It took 6 months. Now, look, I'm not saying I'm Cooper Flagg, but, I also am not, 6 whatever he is at his weight. So I admire the way that Duke, made its case through the ACC tournament. But let's be appropriate about this, fellas. The ACC sucks.
Stinks. No, it stinks.
Sucks.
It's bad.
Those games, congratulations for them handling their business against Louisville and North Carolina. And it was a good defensive effort, but I think that they are very susceptible in their round. After they win their first game, the second game, I think it's against Baylor. I'm pretty sure that's the way it shakes out.
Baylor or Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I think Baylor is a live dog in that situation. So that would be my wager on this.
Interesting. Okay, Raheem, I'll ask you the same question. 4-1 seeds. House threw me a major curveball there. I did not expect him to say Duke. He mentions the Flagg injury. Houston, Duke, Auburn, Florida. Who you be most nervous about as far as getting picked off first?
I'm going to say Auburn. I think this is a team that gives up a lot of threes. If you could shoot the 3 and get hot against them, I think they could find their way out of this tournament. So,
and how about this, Raheem? Think about this with Auburn. Now, we don't know if it's going to play out this way. Louisville, and I get your point, House. The ACC stunk. I watch ACC games all year. It was a bad league. That said, Louisville had no business being an 8 seed with the resume in the year that they had. Unbelievable job by Kelsey. They should have been a 6, a 7. They gave them an 8, Raheem. Tough game against Creighton. But if they beat Creighton, they're going to play Auburn, Raheem, in freaking Lexington, Kentucky. It's going to be a home game for the 8 seed.
About an hour to drive.
How does that make sense, DeBundo?
Look, I was as shocked as anybody. I've got a Louisville Final Four ticket. We talked about that last week. I think the ACC is underrated. I'm putting my flag down, no pun intended, on the ACC being underrated with these 3, 4 with Carolina now. Somehow they got in. Teams in the field, I think they're going to overperform what everybody expects. And I think as much as it is true that the conference was down at the bottom, I think these top teams are all, and you can even make a case for Carolina being a top 25, 30 team, the way they played down the stretch. So I'm in on Auburn going down the second weekend. You could interest me. Now they're going to be doing some math, like 9-point underdogs, 8-point underdogs probably in that game. So it's not going to be like, they're +4 or 5, which we've seen from some of these second round meetings. Like last year, Michigan State closed +3.5 against UNC in round 2. We're not going to get that because these 1 seeds are so much better metrically than they've really ever been. but Auburn's the one. And then, I mean, the Ken Pom math case would be for Houston, just because of how much the market likes Gonzaga. I do not like Gonzaga as much as the market does. I think they're a little overrated metrically. So I think there's some questions there. But I would say for me, it is Auburn.
Wow. See, I would go Gonzaga, the Bundo. And I think the odds tell
Against
you.
Houston? Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Look at the odds, guys, for the Final Four. You got Houston. You got Tennessee. They're putting Gonzaga as an 8 seed, as the third favorite to go and win that region. So you mentioned a bunch of these teams that kind of juice their Ken Pom numbers, and I do think there's a lot of truth in that. Mark Few knows how to get to the Sweet 16, man. That's what he does. He goes to the Sweet 16 every single year. So the way I kind of look at that region is, if Gonzaga gets by Houston, I think they might go to the Final Four. I'm more than willing to go and put that ticket, what is it, at like plus 750 or plus 850? They go and beat Houston. I think they're going, guys. I do. I'm taking a shot with Gonzaga. Because I don't like taking all the ones and the twos. It gets boring for me. I like having a little fun there. House, I might take a shot. I haven't finalized my bracket yet. I'm going to do it tonight. I am very tempted to take the 8 seed to go to the Final Four, because that round of 32 for Houston would scare the crap out of me.
You've made a compelling case. I'm going in the lab. I mean, it is only Monday. We're reacting to the brackets and everything, but we have plenty of time between now. We'll be back on this FDTV airwaves with our picks Thursday, Friday for the tournament. I think this Gonzaga case is interesting. I want to get in the lab a little bit on it, JJ.
What's the case for Gonzaga beating Houston?
Experience. Offensive efficiency. Bottom line, Houston, as athletic as they may be, they've fallen short in these tournament games a lot, Raheem. They have. Get tight. Adversity goes your way. You play a battle-tested team. That's the case. I get it from an athletic standpoint, the Bundo. They're not going to be able to run the floor with Houston. They just don't have that sort of athleticism,
Yeah, I think the thing with Gonzaga is, if you're playing Houston, you have to have multiple ball handlers that can handle the ball pressure, because you're just going to be swarmed from the first minute of the game. And they do have Hickman and Nembhard, who've been there forever. They have a lot of experience. I don't, I'm not a huge fan of the backcourt. I think the backcourt kind of like limits their ceiling a little bit, but it also, like, you're not going to be worried about them crumbling under pressure or fading. And the other thing is, Gonzaga likes to run through Ike a lot. Graham Ike, they're big in the post. It's so hard to run through the post against Houston, but Houston also might have an injury concern here. Jawan Roberts, who's arguably their best player, is probably second best player, might miss here. So we don't know his status yet. That could be something to watch. But yeah, I mean, just in terms of like the actual projection for the game, I mean, Gonzaga plays Houston. The spread will be
it's going to be like that Michigan. It's going to be like that Michigan State UNC game. I mean, based upon the Ken Pom metrics, the Bundo, Houston's third in Ken Pom, Gonzaga's 9th. I think that's a 4.5 line. No,
it would not be more than 6. But everybody's penciling in, Gonzaga against Georgia here. Gonzaga has struggled late games. They're not a great half-court offense like they've been in the past, or as elite as they've been in the past. So, there are still real questions about Gonzaga, and I think it's easy to just pull up the Ken Pom and say, hey, Gonzaga is actually a top 10 team. I would push back against that. So that's just my belief.
Fair enough. Okay, the Bundo, the team that's going to go out of nowhere here and make a deep run in this tournament is always something we're trying to figure out. Obviously, there are certain mid-majors that are going to get all the love. Maybe you have them. Maybe it's a team like Louisville, for example, that you're high on, that can go and make that sort of noise. So I'll say from the 5 seed and below, give me 2 teams that can go deep into this tournament for the fellas.
Yeah, I like VCU. I think they got kind of screwed by the committee here because of the logistics of the tournament. So they played their conference championship in the A10 on Sunday. They have to fly across the country to Denver for their opening game on Thursday, and they draw BYU, who has not played since Friday, and this is, there's been a lot of theories over the years. Why does the Mountain West suck in the tournament? Why does BYU suck in the tournament? And some of the belief was that they get a little bit of an added home court advantage in their home games because of elevation.
Interesting.
And then when they leave elevation and go down to sea level, where most of the country is, for their tournament games, they're not as good. They play a little worse.
I never thought about that. That's interesting,
right.
Raheem.
And
never thought about
and
that.
if you think about it, and this is why I kind of buy it a little, is there's one team in the Mountain West that has always kind of avoided the Mountain West voodoo, and it's San Diego State, who plays at sea level in San Diego. So is that all of it? I don't know. San Diego State's also always recruited high major athletes that have come down usually from the high major level and then gone into the program. So maybe that helps them compete better. Who knows? But it is a theory. And BYU, by the way, 1-12 against the spread last 13 tournament games. So they get a quasi home game at elevation against VCU, but it is a good matchup, I think, on paper for VCU. We saw Duquesne beat BYU last year, putting a ton of pressure on the ball, taking BYU out of its offensive system, really forcing a lot of turnovers. Now, that's what VCU does. VCU is as good at that as anybody. So I think VCU is my team there. I think they got a pretty weak section of the draw in that little quadrant too, where like it wouldn't shock me at all if we looked up and they were in the Sweet 16. Like Wisconsin's a good team; they have a good profile, but the Wisconsin is very much at the mercy of do they make their threes or not.
Oh, it's House.
And it's like one game to another. You really never know what you're getting from Wisconsin. So
I have Wisconsin against UCLA, guys. They hit every three imaginable. They were shooting like the Steph Curry Golden State Warriors. I said, this is fantastic. I had a future on them that thankfully I was able to hedge because Michigan fell behind in the game and I got like 8-1. And I was like, all right, I got to take this. They were down 9. I said, I got to take this. Thank God I did. Because Wisconsin shot the ball like the four of us would shoot the ball at a rec league game, House. It was like, what is happening here? So House, remember I said this, be careful with Wisconsin, please.
You don't have to convince me of anything. It's Wisconsin. We see it every single year. That's like the Big Ten, with the notable exception of Izzo and Michigan State. Izzo March is good for Izzo. I'm always down on the Big Ten.
Here's the thing. So you guys don't like the Big Ten. The ACC is garbage. The SEC is.
See, I'd be careful, Raheem.
Hear me out. The SEC is trending. I'm listening to what you guys are saying. What conference is actually good? And we know the Mountain West has been fraudulent. So which one of these conferences do you see being the ones who's going to dominate? And then which one of these conferences do you see who are I'm fading that conference?
I think it's going to be a mixed bag.
I like the Ivy League this year.
Yale.
It's going to be a mixed bag.
Ivy champ every year, and they usually do me well.
The Ivy's been good in the tournament, but to DeBundo's point on the ACC, House, everything you said about the regular season is accurate. Their NIL is not what it's been. The programs have not been at the mid-tier what they need to be. The Virginians are down. The Syracuses are down. The Miamis are down, whatever. Raheem, look at the ACC in the NCAA tournament over the last few years. Miami a few years ago, Final Four team. Last year, NC State went to the Final Four. They have had a knack. Syracuse a few years ago with Buddy Boeheim. Everyone's like, oh, why are they an 11 seed? They should be in the play-in. They should be in the tournament. They made it all the way to the Sweet 16. There are so many examples of these ACC teams. That's why I'm looking at Louisville and Clemson as two teams that can, hey, you're sitting there in the Sweet 16 of the Elite Eight. They're there. Mm-hmm. I'm with you, DeBundo, on that. I think one of those ACC teams, one of those two is going to find their way making a deep run. I like it.
I'm picking an ACC team to win the whole thing. So
what are you going with Duke?
Yeah.
I understand. I understand that. No concern with the flag injury.
No, not at all. I'm more concerned with Malik Brown though. That is a bigger loss than people are.
He's
underrated.
a good player, man. I watched him at Syracuse.
Looks like he's out.
He's a good player. Good gritty role player. You know.
Yep.
Oh,
but
okay.
I think they got an easy path to the Final Four. Baylor has the ceiling, but we've seen this Baylor's done this for like 3 straight years now, where they've got a lot of talent, they score a bunch, but the defense is like optional. That's really hard to win, I think, against a Duke team that, like, even without Flag, like Malouche defending the paint is unbelievable. Like, he's a top 10 pick. Konkanipel is a top 10 pick. You could argue 3 top 10 picks on that team. And a good scheme and good depth around him with guys like Proctor. I think this Duke team is special. I think they're as good as UConn was 2 years ago. Maybe not last year UConn, but they're going to be my pick. And I've told everybody who wants to listen that I'm picking them to win it all. And I know it's square. It's
You know what, though? You say it's square. People are coming out with the Floridas all over the place, So I get it, dude. I get it. Final one, DeBundo, before we say goodbye, and then we get to some NBA, some NFL with the boys. Raheem has a future in Iowa State that he did in this draft that I felt good about a week ago. I also told Raheem right before he picked, it wasn't his fault because the team literally went right before. What were you picking, Raheem? 9th?
No, I was picking 12th.
12th. I have a Michigan State future, DeBundo. 25 at 30 to 1. I forget what it is. It's 20 to 1 now. Raheem has Iowa State. Out of those two, what future would you feel better about at this stage of the game?
Has to be Michigan State just because of the Keyshawn Gilbert injury. He's probably their best offensive player, probably their second most important player overall. So that's a bit of an issue. But, JJ, we talked about the stat earlier, 0-39 for St. John's. You know who else wasn't ranked preseason?
Michigan State.
Michigan State.
DeBundo, we'll see you next week. Hopefully, we still have some futures and some brackets and all that good stuff available to us. So I'll see you later tonight. We're going to have a little bracket breakdown with Carver and Art. We're going to go run through every game. We're going to have pick score, upset score. So make sure the espresso is on after softball, all right, buddy boy?
Yeah, making my season debut on the Philly softball leagues tonight, and I'm excited to break down the bracket with you guys later.
I like the sound of that. Thank you, Anthony DeBundo. When we come back, we'll recap what we saw in the NBA over the course of the weekend and the Bengals keeping a band together. Can they figure out some room for Trey Hendrickson? We'll come back. East Coast Bias right after this. Welcome back. Let's get to some NBA, boys. House, the love affair I had with the Knicks on Saturday with Draymond Green and Thibodeau and Josh Hart still made me sick to my stomach because if I'm Karl Towns, I'm balling. I'm trying to do everything in my power to win that game Saturday night. Draymond Green, the beef there with the podcast, that made me absolutely sick. But I will open the floor to you after we just did 30 minutes of NCAA tournament basketball action. I'll give you the floor here. Cleveland from the weekend, Phoenix from the weekend, Warriors. What is the grand NBA takeaway that you would take from this weekend of games?
So I spent some time in the lab with the FanDuel Sportsbook taking a look at two markets. One was the NBA play-in market, and I'm really focused on the West. And then I was also looking at regular season wins because you can get odds on teams to get to 50 wins and to 60 wins. And so I spent a little time in the first place looking at the path for Golden State to get to 50 wins and for the Minnesota Timberwolves to get to 50 wins. Now, the Timberwolves right now are plus 210. They were plus 245 Sunday morning to get to 50 wins. They have to go 11-3 over their last 14, now 10-3 over their last 13 to get there. The schedule is favorable. My only concern is that they get themselves to a seed that they're comfortable with and maybe take their foot off the pedal in the last couple games. And you lose it, and I don't think you get enough return with Golden State, who also needed to go, I think, like 11-3 or so over the balance of their schedule, and it was only like plus 140 or so on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So I shied away from that, but the NBA play-in market has my attention, fellas.
Interesting.
Because I think both Golden State and Minnesota are going to find themselves among the top 6 teams in the West. And that means...
So who do you got falling? That's the question, House.
Right, exactly. To me, the two best candidates for that are the Los Angeles Lakers, who are available right this second on the FanDuel Sportsbook at 10-1 to be participating in the play-in. That is an auto bet. That is a must play. I have played it.
Have you gone through the Lakers schedule out of curiosity?
I have gone through the Lakers schedule. The problem is LeBron James availability. He's not playing for at least another week. And I know for sure that they would love to avoid the play-in by any and all means necessary. And great job, Austin Reeves. He's been tremendous trying to fill in for LeBron and make up some of that offensive difference, but the schedule is not easy. The thing that blew my mind, though, and the team that I'm going to call FanDuel when we're done with this show today and ask them to get some odds up. I need odds on Denver to be in the play-in because this Denver Nuggets defense is an abomination. It's an atrocity. It is appalling. That's AAA right there, how bad this Denver defense is. They're a bottom 5 defense since the All-Star break, and the challenge is there isn't anything that they can do about it. They just, play better defense? It's a personnel thing. Now, yes, Aaron Gordon has been in and out of the lineup, but you watch, I'm not saying that anyone should have watched, and I wouldn't really recommend spending the time.
Your Wizard game on Saturday
That's
night.
it. The last 4 minutes of the Washington Wizards Denver Nuggets game, the number of open shots. Now, yes, it's true that Jordan Poole took a shot from 35 feet because, man, that's what he does. It was just right. He found the clown spot on the floor and let the ball fly. He just wanted to get the F out of Denver. That's a direct quote. My issue with Denver is 5 of their next 10 games are against Western Conference teams that they're in this fight with. They got games against Houston and Memphis and the Lakers and Golden State.
Even that Trailblazer game is tricky, House.
Right.
Portland is not an easy game.
100%. And I don't understand why there are no odds right now for Denver to drop down to the play-in. I think there's a very real chance because I really do believe in the momentum of Golden State, and I absolutely believe that Minnesota is on one. And I am going to get a little something down on them just so I can say I did it just for bragging rights for Minnesota to get to 50 wins this season. But Dream, why no odds for Denver to be in the play-in? Am I crazy?
So I guess Denver is 3rd right now. I guess they're just giving them the benefit of the doubt. I mean,
the Jokic benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah, when you got Jokic, it's hard not to give them the benefit of the doubt. And when I'm looking at it right now, they're 43-25. It would take a gigantic collapse for them to fall. So I understand it, but they do have the 7th toughest schedule in the league. And I think you hit the nail on the head about their defense. And, it wasn't even the Wizards game that was alarming for me. It was the Lakers game. There was no Luka Doncic, no LeBron James. You got half of the lineup out. And the Lakers still went out there and put up a 126 offensive rating. And they had the Nuggets on the ropes. They were up 3 with, less than a minute to go before, Jokic stole that game. So I'm very alarmed about the Nuggets. And I wouldn't be surprised if this team was a first-round exit.
Okay, Raheem, out on Denver. Games, slate, anything stand out from the weekend?
The biggest thing that stood out to me is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They continue to be a juggernaut. And SGA, it looks like he's locked up MVP. When you look at what he's done this week, look, he put up 40 against Denver in a win. Obviously 25 in a loss against Denver, but then 34 against Boston, 48 against the Detroit Pistons. And then to come back the following night and dominate the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's just like this Oklahoma City Thunder team, it's just, look, they're proving that they should be the favorite in the Western Conference. And I'm not sure that we're properly rating them. We speak about them having one of the best point differentials of all time, but when you have one of the best point differentials of all time, you should be higher than minus 145 to win the West. I think at this point in time, I know they have the track record of not being able to hit their open shots in the postseason, but the numbers and everything that you're seeing this season, especially with the 2 big lineup with Chet and Hartenstein, look at what they did to the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks could not score efficiently in that game at all. I'm watching that game, and in that game, the Bucks literally, they had a 108 offensive rating. They could not score efficiently. So this Oklahoma City Thunder team is such a juggernaut.
The market agrees, Dream. They're all the way down to plus 185 to win the NBA title. And I'm a believer. I'm over the reservations that I've had around that half court because you hit the nail on the head your own self talking about the 2 bigs. The comment, what we saw from Hartenstein in terms of his ability to pass the bat, he's an incredible inside the paint pocket passer.
Making me sad, House. You're making me sad.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Knicks could have had him. They had to figure out how to do the money. It was too hard. And Chet is a really efficient scorer. I'm on this OKC team. The way I'm looking at the market, the way to play it might be SGA to win MVP plus 210 to be the Finals MVP. Better odds than buying a ticket now on OKC to win the NBA chip. But man, they are a complete team, JJ.
No doubt about it. We got a ringer grab bag, best bets before we send you on your way. We'll come right back. Welcome back. It's time for a quick edition of the East Coast Bias grab bag. Raheem, you're getting the first one. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are going to be back in Cincinnati. They're both going to be making a ton of money. We don't know what that means for Trey Hendrickson. Cincinnati, are you more bullish or are you more skittish about where they stand now going into this year's regular season?
I'm skittish. They haven't done anything to fix their real problems. At the end of the day, the offense was very, very good. The problem last year was the defense. And now when you extend Jamar Chase, when you extend T. Higgins, your defense is going to be as good. And now Trey Hendrickson is asking for a trade request. I don't know how they got better this offseason. And look, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They traded Tyreek Hill because they weren't going to pay him. And they ended up winning 2 Super Bowls without him. So
I understand that point, Raheem. Listen, everything about the history of the salary cap and the gymnastics that you have to do tell you shouldn't go and pay 2 wide receivers. My pushback would be, and I understand your point on the defense, they haven't gotten better and they don't know what's going on with Hendrickson yet. That team is so special, though, because of what Burrow and Chase and Higgins can do. And House, I'm just like, I like the idea of these guys staying together. It makes it more fun. I still believe in the Bengals.
They are special. They're 9-8 special because the defense is, again, an abomination. And they haven't done anything. They're shuffling deck chairs right now. The thing that would make the most sense is to trade Hendrickson and get as much in the way of return assets as possible to try and build up an interior spine for that defense. They need Miles Murphy to look like a first-round draft pick, to produce some pass rush, but they need bodies. They need their secondary to be healthy, that their new defensive coordinator Golden was on the team. He was a linebackers coach, but there's nothing to convince you that this defense is headed in the right direction. They don't have the personnel, and so it doesn't matter. We watched it literally with our own 2 eyes 5 times play out last season with the Bengals. They couldn't score enough because their defense gave up a game-ending score to the opposing team way too many times.
House, this one is for you. Players Championship extended into Monday. Rory McIlroy finds a way, wins the playoff, does what he needs to do. Is this going to be, fact or fiction, a golf year more about Rory McIlroy than it is the great Scotty Scheffler?
It's a fact. And the reason it's a fact is because we just saw Rory McIlroy win a golf tournament without his best stuff. And this Players Championship is the second best field of all of the golf tournaments that will be conducted over the course of this season. He played, against every single guy with a driver that he missed more than 50% of fairways off the tee, and he just used his veteran savvy to get around that place. The putter got hot in stretches just when he needed it, but the fact that he won that golf, he's now won 2 premier golf tournaments this year. He won the AT&T at Pebble Beach with a dominant driver performance, and then he came to the Players and won, which is a very different venue, and won in a radically different way. If he possesses this level of confidence in all 5 phases of his game like this, then I think this man might be on a run that could rival what we saw out of Scotty Scheffler last year, JJ.
Buckle up, and just a little buyer's remorse. I didn't get a better number on Rory. I did take him on Saturday, though, so there is that. At least I was able to put a little extra loot in my wallet. We'll come back with the boys. Best bets. Sending you on your way on this fine day. Is it going to be in the NCAA tournament? Is it going to be looking ahead in the NBA? You'll have to find out right after this. All right, it's best bet time. And rumor has it that Raheem Palmer, thanks to our production meeting, is still in the lab. He's still trying to figure out what he's doing with these NCAA tournament picks. And the good news is we got a TV show on East Coast Bias, FanDuel TV, coming your way on Thursday morning where Raheem will have something ready for you. He's going to be ready to fire. So I'm not giving out any tournament plays myself. I am going to get involved in the first four action, which you'll hear about momentarily. But Joe House, I'm going to give you an open forum here. Best bet. I don't know where you're taking this, but what do you have, sir?
I've got two for you, JJ. We talked about Memphis going up against everybody's darling Colorado State. I'm rolling with Verno on this one. If he tells me that Memphis has their price on the money line has steadily been going down over the 12 hours since the bracket was announced, which to me suggests that I'm on the right side of this. I got Memphis at plus 130. They're plus 118 right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Memphis over Colorado State is one. And then I'm going ahead and biting down. I tried to make a compelling case on the Lakers to end up in the play-in at 10-1 odds. They are only 2.5 games ahead of each of Golden State and Minnesota, both of whom are absolute trucks. They are playing to ensure that they are on the correct side of that cut line. I think the Lakers, the little bit of regression that's going to come to their defense, we're seeing it already. And, LeBron, it makes more sense for him to be healthy for the playoffs. And if they have to go win one game to get themselves in, then that's what they're going to do. And I think that's where it's going to land. At 10-1, I think that's a great return, JJ.
Taking the lottery ticket. And listen, we've seen the Lakers in the play-in find a way deep into a Western Conference field just 2 years ago. So a little food for thought there. Guys, we have first four games on Tuesday and Wednesday. I am not getting involved in the 16 seeds. You don't got to worry about that. We know what happens with teams that everybody complains about as far as going to the tournament. They have no business going, no quad one wins. Yet UNC is laying 4.5 now against San Diego State. I'm fading the Mountain West. I'm taking the North Carolina Tar Heels because they're probably going to win multiple games in the tournament. That's just how this goes. The other team I am taking, Xavier Musketeers. I love the way they play down the stretch. I think they have found their juju from an offensive standpoint. Lost a real hard-fought game against Marquette in the Big East tournament. I am taking Sean Miller here, who I like in March. He's won it in this NCAA tournament. He's gotten to the Sweet 16 before. Taking both favorites, boys, Carolina and Xavier, to send you on your way. Buckle up. I'll see you guys in a couple of days. Raheem, get ready. I need some winners. You better be ready to go.
Definitely will be.
That's my man. For Raheem Palmer, Joe House, John Jastremski signing off. We'll chat in 48 hours. There's a lot happening. Boys are out. Be good, everybody.